Hi everybody, my name's David Burdus. I'm a UK-based inclusivity and communications consultant. Examples of my work include the government's Disability Confident campaign, the Diana Princess of Wales Memorial Fountain, and my own creation, the Tunnel 2K International, the fastest wheelchair race on the planet, where athletes hit speeds unbelievably of 56 miles an hour on the downhill. Tamsin from the School of X has asked me to give my top 3 inclusivity tips for today's symposium. So in advance, they are: 1, think broadband, not narrowband. Second, challenge assumptions and diversify your perspectives. And thirdly, put people at the heart of your process. So firstly, think broadband, not narrowband. I'm put in mind of talking back in the day, 1996, to a telecoms communications company, and I asked the gentleman I was speaking to, rather than relying on text phones to enable communications between deaf and hearing people, I said, can you develop an application that allows anyone to type messages in real time with another person using a computer keyboard, a phone line, Ethernet, and a screen, which were just coming into production at that time and starting to become popular in use? And he actually said to me, unbelievably, there isn't a demand for such a system to be financially viable. He said the trouble with that was everyone would have to have one. And ideally, from a marketing perspective, all products should be able to appeal to the mass market. He also said that they sold minicoms, and that was customarily how deaf people used the telephone. I mean, how short-sighted was he? How narrowband and how boring was his thinking? That texting was only for deaf people, as completely disproven by the very broadband and very exciting development of mobile phone technology. I mean, that guy, by his own school of thinking, was completely stuck in the norm of the day. He couldn't see past that, and he couldn't see the norm of what was coming, the norm of tomorrow. Right, that brings me on to my second tip: challenge assumptions and diversify your perspective. I'm going to use here an example of the World War II bomber bullet hole principle during World War II. Many American bombers then were lost or shot down during aerial fights. Surviving crews did return home with bullet hole locations monitored, collated, and applied to a standard template that you can see here. And those bullet holes are on the fuselage, the wingtips, and the tail. Now, interestingly, Bomber Command was set to armor up all these areas to protect the crews when a Hungarian Jewish statistician called Abraham Vold, he was experienced in analyzing survivor data, said, "You're completely wrong." Now, Vold realized that the British or the Allies were only able to analyze the data from the bombers that survived and returned to England, and those that were shot down over enemy territory were not part of the sample. I'm sure you can all guess where those bullet holes were located. Yeah, exactly, in the cockpit and in the engines, which stopped them returning home. So from an inclusive design perspective, you can see how easy it is to get an ineffective solution or an ineffective design or product if our data or our perspectives are limited. So, for inclusive design, think outside the box. Challenge assumption, think beyond standards. Diversify your perspective, and whatever you do, not rely on your own bias. Now, this brings me on to 3, and by far the best way to understand inclusive design is to put people at the heart of our process, and as a diverse range of people as possible, and at every stage. So I'm going to draw a parallel here, and I'm thinking, take inspiration from Professor X and the Xavier School of Higher Learning. Professor X, he reached out and connected with the minds of people who were very different, didn't he? Mutants. Is that not exactly what we're all doing here now? With Tamsin and the Singapore School of X, are we not mutant thinkers? Are we not placing people at the heart of process, challenging assumptions, diversifying perspectives, and evolving tomorrow's world? What's that? Inclusive design. There you go. Have a great symposium. Drop the norm. Be exciting. School of X.